All right, welcome to part 15 of this Sci Fi Case project. In this tutorial, we're going to fix the seams and we're going to finish off this little sort of clip here. I actually took a little bit further. Looks a little strange. The geometry is not that great in terms of the edge flow could be a little better, but it's fine because it's all triangles and quads. So if I actually turn off the wireframe on shaded and click off of it, you'll see it's actually really nice, and there is some improvement to this overall mesh. So basically what I've done here is kind of adjusted the bend a little bit by pulling out these two areas on the back and the front, and then I added a bevel in the front on the two edges here, and I thought that'd be kind of cool just to give a little bit more sharpness here. And then add an edge loop on the top and the bottom to reinforce sort of the flow and to create like a bevel effect. So we're going to go ahead and do this piece first, and then we'll fix these edges real quick and easy. So let's see, I think I have this on this layer. Oh, I have them both on this layer. Okay, I guess I'll just move this aside. Actually, it's not a bad idea to have it off to the side just as a reference to look at every once in a while. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and duplicate this just so I have a copy of the original just so we can look at it. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hit number 1 to get out of smooth mesh preview, and I'm going to, so looking at this, I think what we're going to do is we're going to start off by kind of pulling out that geometry that's kind of creating a little bit of push here. So I'm going to go into face mode and select this face and then double click, and then this and double click, and then this and double click again, so I can grab all those faces. And all I'm going to do is just kind of pull them out a little bit so you can see here getting a little breathing room. And I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to grab those and kind of pull down and maybe out a little bit like so, not too much, but just a little bit room there. And then on this front part here, same thing. I'm going to select these guys, and I'm going to pull that out a little bit. Just give a little more breathing room. And there's a pinch here that's happening when I add the extra edge loop, which will come up here in a sec here. So let's add the two edge loops. I'm going to use the insert edge loop tool, make sure relative distance is checked. And I'm going to add an edge loop right here, basically to split between there. If I want it to be absolutely perfect, I could have chosen multiple edge loops, choose one, and that would center it between the two areas. So that might be a good idea. And then I want one here, going across here. The only problem is this one here wraps around and adds this extra edge along here, which I'm not really crazy about. So I'm going to actually fix that first before I add the front piece. So you can kind of see here as I loop around, it just adds this extra kind of padding on the back here. And I wanted that to be a little bit more rounded. And so what I'm going to do is go edge mode, and I'm going to double click on this edge loop that I just created. And what I want to do is essentially keep all of the top part. So I'm just going to drag with the control key and drag across so that only this bottom part is selected from here down. And essentially what I'm going to do is then hit control backspace, which will delete that. Now that leaves me with the Ngon here, 5-sided, which I'm basically going to fix just with the multi-cut tool. So I'm going to click here and then click here. And what's nice about that is it allows me to follow the roundness of the circle here more. And so that just works really well. So again, I'm going to do that here, click here, and then left click here, and then right click. And that sort of finishes off that edge beautifully. So next, let's add, if we double click on this edge loop and double click on this one, these two sort of edges here, I want to essentially create a bevel here. So I'm just going to click on the bevel tool, and again you can click in your bevel options here and adjust the fraction And I'm thinking something like 0.4 might be good. And then I'm going to add 2 segments. Or was it 1? Yeah, 1 segment. So 2 total. Maybe I'll reduce this a little bit, maybe to 0.2. So it's a little bit tighter. It kind of basically reflects what's going on there. And if I hit number 3, you know, it looks really nice now. It's got a nice little edge there. But the problem is we got this big end gone here. So I'm going to use the multi-cut tool, and I basically what I do is pull these across in different areas. So I'm going to click here, left click, and then left click here, and then right click. And that will hold that edge really well. This one we want to kind of pull across further. So I'm going to left click here, and then left click here, and then right click. And it'll create some additional triangles, but that's okay. In fact, in here, we've got the last one, which is this one here. I'm just going to, again, left click, and then left click here, and then right click. And then if you hit number 3 and click out and right click, go to object mode, you can see there's no real blemish or anything on here. So it doesn't create any pinching. It actually holds that edge really well. So same thing on this side. Basically, I'm going to use the multi-cut tool. And again, repeat that action. So left click, then right click to there. And then I'll do the center one, left click, right click. And then this one, left click, and then left click, and then right click. And you can always check to make sure, just by hitting the number 3 key, that everything, you know, flows okay there. It looks like it is. So now on this side, underneath here, I basically got to repeat that same action. So I'm going to, again, left click on this guy, and then left click here, and then right click, and then left click here, and then bring it all the way over, left click, and then right click, and then left click here, and then left click, and right click. And so you can see that's kind of repeating the same certain angle there. So then do the same thing over here. This guy here, left click, and then left click, and right click, and left click, and left click, and then right click, and then left click, and left click, and then right click. And if we hit number 3, you know, it doesn't look that great edge flow wise, but it is all triangles and quads at that point. So go back to object mode, and let's take a look. So I like this overall. There's a little bit of pinching right here. And if we hit number 1, it's kind of from this guy right here and this vert right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to scale these in a little bit, just by hitting R and kind of scale in a little bit. And I think I'm going to do the same thing on these guys. I'm going to select this guy and hold the shift key and select this guy and just kind of scale in a tiny bit. And let's see if that helps it out. So we hit number 3. And click off. Yeah, I like that. That's much better. Now this is looking really good. It's got the shape I'm looking for. So that's good. So now I just have to move that into position there and basically replace it. So, you know, basically move this one out. This one, I can just zero out in the channel box here. And voila. Now I might need to adjust it once I adjust this guy. So you can see here the problem with the seam here. Let me just move these 2 guys out of the way here. So on this one, you can see it's just basically there's too much depth here between these 2. And so what I could do is scale this out a little bit. That might help a little bit. So I'm going to hit number 1. And I'm going to go into face mode and double click and just delete that half. On this one, go to object mode and then center my pivot. And on this one, I'm just going to scale it out a little bit. So I'm hitting R. And I'm just going to scale it out in the Z direction a tiny smidge. And then I'll, you might have to move it a little bit, you know, nudge it around just a smidge. And that will kind of fill in most of that area. But there's still going to be a little bit of issue with this piece here. And underneath here, this piece. And so we just got to fix it. It's just a quick little fix. So this one we'll do first, kind of isolate it. And what has to happen here is this edge here, go to edge mode, from here to go over on this side. and I'm holding the shift key, and I'm just going to double click on that edge. So what that does is basically go all the way around from there to there. It doesn't go all the way around the entire thing because, again, I was shift clicking. I wasn't just double clicking. Double clicking would create that effect. So now what I can do is I can scale it in. So I'm just going to scale in this by grabbing the cube and just scale it in a little bit. And then, I don't have to scale it quite so far. And on the top here, I'm going to hit W, or actually I'm going to control drag over these edges and control drag over these edges to kind of deselect. So now I just have this sort of longer guy here, and I'm hitting W and just kind of pull this down a little bit. And so basically what I did is scale it out a little bit more. I mean, I could add a supporting edge loop along there if I really need to. I could do that real quick. Double click, relative edge. So if I really need one in here, just pull that down, and that would kind of give it a little extra support. I don't think it's going to be necessary though. If we hit number 3 and uncheck, and you can see now we no longer have any gap hole in there. So that one's fixed, pretty easy. So next one, this one here. This one's gonna be a little bit different. So with this one, what we're gonna do is extrude the faces at the bottom. So I'm just gonna go into edge mode, and actually I'll hit number 1 here. Be a little easier to see. Basically what I want to do is select this face, or this edge, sorry, and then come all the way over here and hold the shift key and double click on that whole edge loop of this line here. So not the entire edge loop, but just that line. And I'm going to hit Control E to extrude, and I'm just going to pull up basically to about there. And then what I have to do is add a couple edge loops here. So I'm going to add, double click on my Insert Edge Loop tool, and I need to add one like right here and right here. Now these guys will all be able to connect. So right now they're not connecting, so what we could do to make sure that these do connect is, let's see, is double click on, or actually, let's go to vertice mode, and they're almost lined up with each other. So if I drag over the verts like that, you can use a mesh tool and let's see, edit mesh, and there's this merge or merge to center we could use. So that one would probably do it. So just by dragging across. The important thing is just to make sure you don't have any other verts selected when you do that. So drag over it, and this time I just hit number 4 to check, and I'll hit G, and then drag over this guy, and hit G, and then over this guy, and hit G. So now we can see this is all sealed together. And the G key, if you don't remember this from before, it repeats the last action. Or if I didn't go over this last time, I can't remember if I did or not. So I don't have to keep adding that one command there. So again, I'm just dragging across these guys, and I'll hit G, then drag across these guys and hit G. And sometimes it's a little tricky to get around there. And drag across these guys, and again hit G, and that looks pretty good. So now if I hit smooth brush preview, my hit number 3, and on isolate, you'll now see that seam is fixed. Again, I could add a supporting edge, but really it's not necessary, just the way it's hidden in there. So at this point, what I would do is again just mirror this across, and I could then mirror these clips all the way around after I readjust them. You can see here I'd have to move this one over just a tad, and I don't want to move my pivot, so I would just kind of eyeball it and see between there. That looks pretty good, for the clit, and then basically I can just duplicate that over on those other ones, which you've seen before. So we won't go over that in this tutorial. But yeah, this is looking good. I feel like we're in a good spot. So the next thing we'll do is a brace here in the next tutorial, and then we'll continue down and add additional detail for another kind of hinge clip at the bottom base here. Until next time, see you soon. Cheers.